because the money is coming from the National Exchequer, those applications have to be screened, verified and ready for payment in December. And there'll be a once-off payment in December. It's not paid over a number of years or anything like that. And the sort of maximum payment would be €5,000 per applicant.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc Head of Scheme Support Unit, Aidan Murray, to get an update on the upcoming scheme deadlines and the newly launched, long-established Young Farmer Scheme. Aidan, the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine have recently launched the details on the long-established Young Farmer Scheme. Can you explain why this has happened now?
Since 2015, there's been supports available for young farmers through the National Reserve and various young farmer schemes. And that, when that came out as part of the CAP, this covered young farmers sort of from 2010 onwards. And if people remember, we had an installation aid scheme in the running up until I think it was October 2008. So there was a gap there where there was some farmers that were left out. So the department went back and got permission for the EU for farmers that commenced, say, in 2008 and 2009, and they were classified as old young farmers. So, and they would have commenced, they would have started farming in their own right from the 1st of January 2008 to the 31st of December 2009. So they could have went and looked in 2015 to the National Reserve for support. And if they were successful, they actually received entitlements on land that had either no entitlements or had low value entitlements. And that increased, the department, if they were successful, tended to increase those entitlements towards the national average. So DAFN then went back and looked for support for farmers that commenced their holdings and commenced farming before 2008. That were obviously, and there was age criteria laid down. So this scheme is there basically to support that group that had commenced farming before the 31st of December 2007.
And what criteria now will these farmers have to meet in order to be able to apply for this new scheme?
Well, the group of farmers are defined as those that were under 40 in 2015 and had established their holding prior to 2008 and had either no or sort of low value entitlements. But there's 7 pieces of criteria in this new scheme. And the important thing to remember about it is that you must comply with all 7 pieces of the criteria. If you're out of kilter on 1 or 2, there's enough in that to deem you ineligible. So if you're making an application, make sure that you qualify under all 7 criteria. And the criteria would be that you must obviously have submitted a valid BIS application in 2025. The second one is that you had put in a valid application under the Basic Payment Scheme in 2015. You be aged no more than 40 in 2015, in other words, born on or after the 1st of January 1975. And you must have had set up as the head of your holding for the first time on or before the 31st of December 2007. You have to have agricultural education. So you must have completed a recognised FETAC Level 6 or equivalent course before the 29th of May 2015. And you can't have previously benefited under the Young Farmer Installation Aid Scheme, or Installation Aid as we called it, or you can't have benefited under the Basic Payment Scheme National Reserve, including allocations under the Scottish derogation. So those are the 7 pieces of criteria that you need to go through and sort of tick the box that you comply with those in order to give yourself the best possible chance of a valid application.
And are there many farmers in this situation that are eligible to apply?
Well, it's hard to know. The department opened a survey in May to people that and laid out some of the criteria that was required without actually asking for proof. And there was 400 to 500 actually submitted survey details, and then some of those were eligible, some were not. So I would suspect that it's probably going to be less than 1,000 farmers, but we just don't know, Catherine. But the numbers and looking at the level of funding, there's 5 million available in funding for this scheme. The numbers are not going to be great. Speaking to advisors, some advisors maybe have one of their clients would be eligible, others would have two or three that would be eligible under the criteria. So the numbers are not going to be huge.
And will this be just a once-off payment, or is it going to be paid over a number of years?
Yeah, this is a once-off legacy scheme whereby the department, what's happening now is you're making applications, the department will screen all the applications, and because the money is coming from the National Exchequer, those applications have to be screened, verified, and ready for payment in December. And there'll be a once-off payment in December. It's not paid over a number of years or anything like that. And the sort of maximum payment would be €5,000 per applicant. And if the funding doesn't cover that, well, then it's in the terms and conditions that they can provisionally revise that figure slightly down. But, it just depends purely on the numbers that will actually apply.
And how can farmers apply, Aidan, now, or what's the deadline?
Well, it's really a two-stage process. If you go in on Ag Food, either an individual themselves that's signed up to Ag Food, or their advisor or consultant can go in as their agent. And basically, they go in firstly in expressions of interest, and you scroll down through that, and you actually look for a young or long-established young farmer survey. And you go in there and you complete, and basically the survey looks for the ask you questions about the 7 criteria that are listed out there. You tick that box, you submit it, and you get confirmation that it is submitted. You come out of that then, and you go back in to Ag Food and look at Ag Scheme's application for payment, and you go in, and that's the screen that will allow you to upload the criteria. So your criteria for upload is basically you'll need your agricultural qualifications, which if you don't have, could take a few weeks to get, but there's sort of provision for that. And the other piece is you'll need a copy of your long birth cert, and those would have to be uploaded. And you make the second part of the application on that under Ag Scheme's application for payment. So it's all up on Ag Food. If your advisor or consultant would know how to go about it, if you're not content that you've done it to do it yourself. The deadline then is that this must be all uploaded by the 13th of August. So it's 5 o'clock on the 13th of August is the cutoff, and it's a short window, but that's to facilitate making sure that payments can be got, because if the funding's not gone and paid out before the end of December or the end of this year, it's actually reverts back to the National Exchequer, and the funding would potentially be lost.
So the deadline for that scheme is the 13th of August at 5 p.m. In relation to the Suckler Carbon Efficiency Programme, a number of farmers are signed up for that programme. There are a number of deadlines approaching for that scheme this year.
Yeah, well, the first couple of checks that you have is this year refers to calves born on or after the 1st of July 2024 up to the 30th of June 2025. So have you 50% of your reference figure cows calved? That's important. That's number one. The other one then is your genotyping, 70% of the yearly reference number. So if you had 10 as your reference number, you'll need to have 7 animals eligible for genotyping, and the genotyping will have to be completed by the 30th of November. From a weighing perspective, 80% of eligible animals born. So if you had 10 animals born in the herd this year, 8 of them will have to be weighed, and that's the cow and calf team, while the calf is still on the cow and the calf is over 50 days of age. And that weight must be uploaded on ICBF before the 1st of November. And then the other big one this year, I suppose, is that 65% of the replacement females will require to be 4 and 5 star genotyped either within or across breed by the 31st of October 2025. So it's important that you have enough eligible females on that date to cover you for that 65%. And that's the important one. So, it can be cows that's existing in the herd. It can be heifers that are 16 months or older on the 31st of October that have been genotyped and are at 4 and 5 star. And look, if you're able to go in on ICBF Herd Plus, they have a very good dashboard there that you'll be able to check the eligibility of current females, and are you going to be short or will you have sufficient? And that's important. And I suppose the other thing to remember is once the calves are over 5 months of age, there's bits and pieces of survey data in terms of calf quality, calf docility, that type of thing has to be filled out. And if that's filled out by the sort of early mid-November, it gives you a better chance of full payment when the December payment run comes. You don't have to complete it by that date, but it just means that the department don't have all the information to fully pay you, because you could actually submit that information up until mid-February 2026. But if you want full payment, get it submitted as quickly as you can on that.
With regard to the National Dairy Beef Weighing Scheme, can you just remind listeners of the actions that they need to complete between now and the 1st of November?
Yeah, well, this is sort of dairy bred, Frisian males or male and female of beef sired animals. The animals themselves must be at least 12 weeks of age at the time of weighing, and they have to be on your holding at least 10 days before you do that weighing. So if they're 13 weeks coming in, you can't weigh them the day after they come in. They'll have to be on your holding for at least that. And the calves ideally should be born or will have been born between the 1st of July 24 and the 30th of June 2025. And you obviously record the weight and upload it onto ICBF, onto the platform, and the weights must be recorded by I think it's around 5:30 on the 1st of November 2025 in order to trigger payment. So the main thing is over 12 weeks of age at the time of weighing, and be on your farm for a minimum of 10 days before you go and start weighing.
That's great, Aidan. And finally, when is the 2025 Suckler Beef Welfare Scheme expected to open for applications?
Yeah, normally what I call it, it's late, probably the last scheme that'll open up this year because of the department have to wait until all calves are born and registered. So it's for calves up until the end of June 2025. It's expected to open on the 12th of August, and it's likely to close around about the 23rd to 25th of September. So it's the third week of September, the week after the ploughing, that it's likely to close. And because the payment is increased to €75 per eligible animal this year up to the limit, then there's 3 options available. The meal feeding is obviously compulsory. You've got the vaccination, which is optional, and you've got the fecal sampling or silage sampling, which is optional as well. So in order to get the full €75 per animal, you must do all 3. But look, it'll open, as I say, in around the 12th of August, and will stay open for 5 to 6 weeks. So you have up until probably that third week of September to get your application in.
That's great, Aidan. Thanks very much for the update on all the schemes.
You're welcome.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Aidan for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Teagasc, and thanks for listening.